The moment my daughter-in-law looked me in the eye and said, "You don't belong upstairs anymore, Gloria," I felt the floor shift beneath me. I had made sure of that when my husband and I bought it 41 years ago with money we saved one paycheck at a time, but something cracked inside my chest that evening. Quiet and final, like a bone you do not hear break until you try to move. I had been standing in the hallway outside the master bedroom, the room where I slept beside my husband for 36 years, the room where I held his hand the night he passed, the room where I still kept his reading glasses on the nightstand, because moving them felt like erasing him. My daughter-in-law, Vanessa, stood in the doorway with her arms crossed and a padlock in her hand. Behind her, the bed had been stripped of my quilt and replaced with a gray duvet I had never seen before. My photographs were gone from the dresser. My robe was folded in a plastic bin by her feet. "We need the space," she said, her voice smooth, rehearsed. "Marcus and I talked about it. The small room downstairs is better for you anyway." I looked past her into the room that smelled like her perfume now instead of my lavender sachets. I looked for my son. Marcus stood near the window with his back to me, hands in his pockets, staring at the yard, as if the conversation had nothing to do with him. "Marcus," I said. He did not turn around. "Marcus." Vanessa stepped forward slightly, not enough to touch me, but enough to fill the doorway completely. "He agrees," she said. "We all think this is best." I stood there for a long time, long enough for the hallway light to flicker once, long enough for Vanessa to shift her weight and check her phone, long enough for my son to remain exactly where he was, a silhouette against my window, saying nothing. Then I walked downstairs, one step at a time, gripping the railing not because my legs were weak but because my hands needed something solid to hold. The small room downstairs had been a sewing room once. Before that, it was where Marcus did his homework as a boy, sitting cross-legged on the carpet with his math book open and a pencil behind his ear. Now it held a narrow bed, a folding table, and a lamp with no shade. My clothes had already been moved. My medications sat in a row on the windowsill, like soldiers standing guard over nothing. I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to the house settle above me. Footsteps crossed the ceiling. A door closed. Laughter, faint and careless, drifted down through the floorboards. I had invited them to stay 3 years ago, after Marcus lost his position at the distribution company. Vanessa had been working part-time then, something in marketing that she described differently each time I asked. They needed a few months, Marcus said. Just until he got back on his feet. His voice had cracked when he asked, and I remembered thinking how much he sounded like his father when he was scared. I said yes, without hesitation. Of course I did. He was my son. The house was large. There was room, but months became a year became 2, and somewhere in the middle of the 3rd year, the house stopped feeling like mine. Vanessa rearranged the kitchen. She replaced my curtains with blinds. She told me the living room furniture was outdated and ordered new pieces on a credit card I later discovered was linked to my account. My grocery list was overruled. My thermostat setting was changed. My television programs were interrupted. And each time I raised my voice even slightly, Marcus would appear with that tired expression and say, "Mom, please. She is just trying to help. Help." The word had become a cage dressed in kindness. That night, in the narrow bed downstairs, I did not cry. I had done enough of that in the years after my husband died, enough to know that tears do not unlock doors. Instead, I lay still and let my mind do what it had always done best: organize. I had spent 34 years as a head nurse at Houston Methodist. I managed floors of critical patients, coordinated with surgeons who believed their time was more valuable than anyone else's, resolved conflicts between staff members who could not agree on shift rotations. I read charts the way some people read novels, spotting the detail that did not belong, the number that contradicted the note above it. Retirement had softened my routine, but it had not dulled the instinct. Something in this house was wrong beyond the bedroom door and the padlock. Something financial. I had felt it for months, the way a nurse feels a fever before the thermometer confirms it. The signs had been small. A letter from my bank that arrived opened. A phone call from an advisor I did not remember authorizing. A moment 3 months ago when I tried to log into my savings account online and found the password had been changed. When I mentioned it to Marcus, he frowned and said it was probably a glitch. When I mentioned it to Vanessa, she smiled and said she had helped me update it for security. I had believed them. Or rather, I had chosen to, because the alternative was something I was not ready to face. But sitting in that small room with the bare lamp and the cold windowsill, I was ready now. The next morning, I woke before anyone else. The house was quiet the way houses are when the people inside them believe they have won. I dressed slowly, put on the navy cardigan my husband gave me the Christmas before he died, and walked to the kitchen. I brewed coffee in the old percolator Vanessa had pushed to the back of the counter. The sound of it bubbling filled the room like a small act of defiance. I did not eat breakfast. Instead, I picked up my purse, checked that my identification and insurance card were inside, and left through the side door. The morning air in Houston was thick and warm even at 7 o'clock, the kind of heat that wraps around you and stays. I drove to the bank. The branch manager, a young woman named Keisha, recognized me from years of visits. She smiled when I sat down, then stopped smiling when I told her what I needed. I want to see every account that carries my name or my social security number. Every transaction, every authorized user, every change made in the past 3 years. She hesitated. Mrs. Palmer, some of these accounts have joint access now. Your son was added as a— I did not add him, I said. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she began typing. What came out of the printer over the next 40 minutes changed everything. Marcus had been added to my primary savings account 18 months ago. The signature on the authorization form looked like mine, but was not. I had spent 3 decades signing patient charts. I knew my own hand. Below that, a series of transfers. Small at first, 500 here, 800 there, timed to coincide with my pension deposits, then larger. 3,000 in October, 5,000 in January. A single withdrawal of $12,000 in March, noted simply as home improvement. I looked around the kitchen. I returned to that afternoon, at the blinds Vanessa had chosen, the countertops she had resurfaced, the smart thermostat she controlled from her phone. Home improvement. My money had paid for the redecoration of my own house while I was moved into a windowless room downstairs. But it did not stop there. A second account had been opened in my name at a different bank, one I had never visited. The statements showed regular deposits, followed by immediate transfers to an account I did not recognize. When Keisha traced it, her face went very still. Mrs. Palmer, she said carefully, this receiving account is registered to Vanessa Holt Palmer. I folded the papers neatly, placed them in my purse, and thanked her. She asked if I wanted to file a report. Not yet, I said. I need to understand the full picture first. When I left the bank, my hands were steady. In fact, I felt calmer than I had in years, the way you feel when a diagnosis finally confirms what your body already knew. That evening, I ate dinner at the kitchen table with Marcus and Vanessa as if nothing had happened. Vanessa talked about a renovation she wanted to do in the bathroom upstairs. She used words like investment and equity, as if the house were hers to improve. Marcus nodded along, chewing quietly. I watched them both the way I used to watch a patient's vitals on a monitor, steady, alert, waiting for the irregularity. After dinner, I washed my own dishes, dried them slowly, and returned to the small room. I closed the door and called a woman I had not spoken to in over a year. Her name was Patricia Bowen. She was an attorney specializing in elder financial abuse. We had met at a community health fair where I volunteered after retirement. She had given a talk about protecting seniors from exploitation by family members. I remember thinking at the time that it would never apply to me. Patricia answered on the second ring. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked 3 questions. Is the house in your name alone? Have you signed any power of attorney documents? Do you have copies of the bank records? Yes. No. Yes. Then we have a clear path, she said. But Gloria, I need you to understand something. Once we move forward, this becomes a legal matter. Your son could face charges. I closed my eyes and saw Marcus as a boy, 7 years old, sitting at the kitchen table with chocolate on his chin, asking me to check his spelling homework. I saw him at 18, nervous in his graduation gown, looking for my face in the crowd. I saw him at the window of my bedroom, back turned, saying nothing while his wife locked me out. I understand, I said. The next 2 weeks were the quietest and busiest of my life. On the surface, nothing changed. I cooked. I cleaned the parts of the house Vanessa still allowed me to enter. I smiled when spoken to and excused myself early each evening. Underneath, Patricia and I built a case with the precision of a surgical team preparing for an operation. She sent a forensic accountant to review the records. The total amount diverted from my accounts over 3 years came to $91,000. Some of it had been spent on the house renovations. Some had gone to credit card payments for accounts I never opened. A significant portion had simply vanished into Vanessa's personal account and been spent on things I would never see. Designer bags, a leased car listed under a company that did not exist, a vacation to Cancun that Marcus told me was a work trip. Patricia also discovered something I had not expected. Vanessa had begun the process of adding Marcus's name to the deed of my house. The paperwork had been submitted to the county clerk's office 3 weeks before the night she locked me out of my bedroom. The application was incomplete, missing a notarized signature from the current owner. From me, Patricia found a draft of a forged notarization in a folder on the county's pending queue, flagged but not yet rejected. When she told me, I sat in my car in the parking lot of a grocery store and pressed my palms flat against the steering wheel. Not because I was shaking, because I needed to feel something unmovable. They were not just living in my house. They were trying to take it. On a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after the night with the padlock, I woke early again, dressed in my best clothes, the charcoal slacks and the cream blouse I used to wear for hospital board meetings, and drove to Patricia's office. She had prepared everything: a cease and desist letter for the fraudulent deed application, a formal demand for repayment of diverted funds, a notice of termination of occupancy, giving Marcus and Vanessa 30 days to vacate, and a referral to the district attorney's office for the forged documents. I signed each page slowly, reading every line. Patricia watched me with steady eyes. "You can still stop this," she said, "if you want to try talking to them first." "I talked to them for 3 years," I replied. They heard silence. At 10:15 that morning, a process server rang the doorbell of my house. I was not there. I was sitting in a bakery 2 miles away, eating a blueberry muffin and reading the newspaper. My phone buzzed once. It was Patricia. Served. Both present. No incident. 11 minutes later, my phone rang. Marcus. "Mom, what is this? What did you do?" I set my muffin down and wiped my fingers on a napkin. "Good morning, Marcus. There is a man handing us legal papers. Vanessa is hysterical. He says we have to leave in 30 days. Mom, this is insane." "It is not insane," I said. "It is overdue. You cannot just throw your own son out of the house." "I am not throwing you out. I am reclaiming what is mine." "There is a difference." His voice dropped, the way it always did when he was about to bargain. "If this is about the bedroom, we can switch back. Vanessa was just trying to—" "This is not about the bedroom, Marcus." I paused, letting the silence hold its weight. This is about $91,000. This is about a forged deed application with my name on it. This is about 3 years of watching my life be disassembled while I was told it was for my own good. Silence. A long one. I could hear Vanessa's voice in the background. High-pitched. Rapid. But the words were unclear. "I do not know what you are talking about," he said finally. "Then read the papers," I said. "Your attorney can explain them." I hung up and finished my muffin. It was the best thing I had tasted in months. The days that followed were not easy, but they were clear, and clarity is its own kind of comfort. Vanessa called 17 times in the first 48 hours. I answered none of them. Marcus sent 4 text messages, each longer and more desperate than the last. The first was angry. The second was confused. The third was pleading. The fourth was only 3 words: "Mom, I am sorry." I read them all. I responded to none. Patricia had warned me about this phase. "They will cycle through every emotion," she said. "Rage, denial, bargaining, guilt. They are not processing grief. They are calculating which approach will make you fold. Do not fold." I did not fold. Instead, I did something I had not done in 3 years. I changed the passwords on all my accounts. I froze the supplementary credit cards. I redirected my pension deposits to a new account at a bank Vanessa had never heard of. I called my insurance company and removed Marcus as a beneficiary on my life policy, replacing him with a trust that Patricia helped me establish. Each step felt like turning a lock. Not in anger, in correction. On day 12, Marcus appeared at the bakery where I had been spending my mornings. He looked thinner. His shirt was wrinkled. He sat down across from me without asking, and folded his hands on the table like a man about to confess. "Vanessa is gone," he said. I looked at him and waited. "She left last night. Took the leased car, the suitcases, and her laptop. She said she was not going to wait around for a criminal case." He laughed bitterly, a hollow sound. "I did not even know about the car. I thought it was a company vehicle." "What else did you not know?" I asked. He stared at his hands. "The accounts, the transfers. I knew some of it. She said she was consolidating your finances to make them easier to manage. She said you had agreed. I believed her because it was easier than asking questions." "And the deed?" His jaw tightened. "I did not know about that. I swear to you, Mom, I did not know she was trying to put my name on the house." I studied his face the way I used to study a patient's chart, looking for what was written and what was missing. I believed him about the deed. I did not believe him about the rest. "Easier than asking questions," I repeated. "That is not innocence, Marcus. That is participation." He dropped his head. His shoulders shook once, but he caught himself. "What do I do now?" he asked. "You leave the house within 30 days, as the notice states. You find your own place. You get a job. You repay what you can, when you can, and you learn to live without someone managing your life for you, whether that someone is your wife or your mother. Will you forgive me?" I reached across the table and placed my hand over his, just for a moment. Forgiveness is not a door you walk through once. It is a road, and you have not started walking yet. He nodded slowly. Then he stood, pushed the chair in carefully, the way I taught him as a child, and left without another word. On day 30, Marcus loaded a rented truck with his belongings. He did not take the new furniture, the blinds, or the smart thermostat. He left the padlock on the kitchen counter like a confession he could not speak aloud. I was not there to watch him leave. I was at Patricia's office, signing the final paperwork to report the forged deed application to the county clerk and the district attorney. When I returned home that afternoon, the house was empty in the most beautiful way. Not abandoned, not hollow, just open. The air moved freely through the rooms, like it had been waiting for permission. I walked upstairs for the first time in weeks. The master bedroom door stood open, unlocked, unhidden. The gray duvet was gone. The mattress was bare. I ran my hand along the doorframe, then stepped inside and stood at the window where Marcus had kept his back to me that night. Outside, the magnolia tree my husband planted the year we moved in was heavy with white blossoms. I had not seen them from this angle in so long. I spent the next 3 days reclaiming the house, not with fury, but with intention. I brought my quilt back upstairs. I put my husband's reading glasses back on the nightstand. I replaced the blinds with curtains, white ones that caught the light and moved when the breeze came through. I removed the smart thermostat and replaced it with the simple dial I could operate with one hand. I brewed coffee every morning in the percolator and let the sound fill every room. On Saturday, I invited 4 women from my church group over for lunch. They were all around my age, all living alone or with family, all quietly holding something they had not named. We sat at the dining table with sandwiches and lemonade, and I told them what had happened. Every detail: the padlock, the bank statements, the forged deed, the 30-day notice, the son who looked away, and the wife who locked the door. They listened the way women who have survived things listen, without interruption, without shock, with recognition. When I finished, one of them, Dorothy, set her glass down and said quietly, "My grandson asked me to add his name to my house last month. He said it would make things easier when I pass." I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder Patricia had helped me prepare. Inside were printed guides on property rights for homeowners over 60, contact information for the county legal aid office, and a checklist of warning signs for financial exploitation by family members. "Easier for whom?" I said. "Your house is yours while you are breathing. If you want to leave it to someone, you write a will. While you are alive, no one's name goes on that deed but yours." Dorothy picked up the folder. So did the others. Their backs straightened. Their eyes sharpened. The table felt different after that, not like a gathering of old women eating sandwiches, but like a room full of people remembering they had authority. 2 weeks later, Marcus called. His voice sounded different. Not small, but measured. The way a person sounds when they are choosing their words carefully instead of reaching for the easy ones. "I got a job," he said. "Warehouse logistics. It is not glamorous, but it is full-time." "Good," I said. "I found a studio apartment near the bus line. It is small. The walls are thin. But I signed the lease with my own name and my own credit." "Good." There was a pause. Then, Vanessa filed for divorce through her attorney. "I have not spoken to her." I said nothing. There was nothing to say about a woman who ran when the paper trail led to her door. "Mom," he said, and his voice finally broke. "Just a little. Just enough. I am sorry I turned my back." I sat in my chair by the window, the one with the armrest my hand had worn smooth over 4 decades, and I let his words settle. They did not fix anything. Words never do by themselves, but they were a beginning. And beginnings matter. "I know you are," I said. "Now show me." He exhaled, long and shaky. "Can I come for dinner sometime?" "Not to stay. Just dinner." "Call first," I said. "And bring your own chair." He laughed softly. A real laugh. The first one I had heard from him in years. That night, I sat alone in the living room with the television off. Not because someone told me to turn it off, but because I did not need it. The house was quiet in the way I had almost forgotten, the kind of quiet that belongs to a person who has stopped making herself small so others can take up more room. I picked up the remote control from the coffee table and held it in my hand. Such a simple thing. Plastic and buttons and a little red light. For 3 years, it had been a symbol of everything I had surrendered. Now, it was just a remote control. I set it down, picked up my tea instead, and let the evening pass at whatever pace it chose. Here is what I want you to know, whoever is listening tonight. Loving your children does not mean funding their silence. Helping family does not mean erasing yourself. And when someone locks you out of your own room, it is not the lock that should scare you. It is how long you waited before asking why. I waited 3 years. I wish I had not. But the moment I stopped waiting, everything became visible. Who was protecting me? Who was using me? And who was standing at the window, hoping I would not look too closely? Boundaries are not punishment. They are the clearest form of love I know. They say, I see you, I care about you, but I will not disappear so you can be comfortable. If you are sitting in a room that used to be yours, in a house you paid for, wondering if you have the right to say enough, let me tell you clearly. You do. You always did. Now I want to hear from you. What did this story remind you of? And what city are you listening from tonight?